And welcome back to Music Free Static. And, I was having a conversation in the Create Mod Discord, okay? And, yeah, we're going to be talking Minecraft and stuff. Don't worry. This is going to be fun. But no, I was chatting in the Create Mod Discord the other day, and there was somebody in the channel who wanted to ban Elytra in the Nether, okay? He also wanted to eliminate that 8-to-1 distance ratio that you have in the Nether, and make it 1-to-1. Yes, he talked about, oh, maybe I'll do okay with something in between, but he really wanted to eliminate all this stuff. And after we got talking for a while, the reason came out. He says the reason he wanted to ban this is he didn't like that other players on the server were flying past his base or bypassing it completely in the Nether, and so we're not seeing his builds. Okay, it was really ridiculous reason to want to ban Elytra and stuff. But it led to a conversation that was sort of interesting. And I think this is one of the reasons you hear people calling for Mojang to nerf Elytra. Because once you have an Elytra, why would you use anything else? Okay. Now, Elytra is actually a wonderful thing. In a vanilla world, once I have one, yeah, I use it a lot. But I don't play Minecraft apparently the way a lot of other people do. Right? I tend to stay in one place. I build my base and I don't tend to leave it unless I have to go get resources or go mining or stuff, okay? And that's me. I don't like to explore. That's just not my jam. On the other hand, if you're on an SMP where you've got other players that you may want to go visit, go to their bases, things like that, I definitely don't want to spend time traveling. Okay, this is one of my problems in real life. I don't mind being here. I don't mind going to visit people. It's that time in between that I'm not overly fond of, right? So Elytra helps with that, and being able to cut through the Nether can really help with that as well, because hey, it takes 1/8 of the time, and if your bases are thousands of blocks apart, it's nice to be able to shorten that trip. Okay. But the problem with all of those calls for nerfing Elytra and things like that is that it solves the wrong problem. Okay. The problem isn't that Elytra are just too good. All right, at least the way I see it. The problem isn't that Elytra are too good. The problem is that there's like no middle ground, okay? The next fastest way to get around with any degree of freedom is a horse. And horses are not fabulously fast. Yes, if you want to spend weeks and weeks and weeks training up horses, so you've got one that is the fastest possible horse, okay, they can move fairly quickly, but it's still nowhere near where you can be with an Elytra. Okay, so the way I see it, traveling from place to place needs something in the middle. Okay, now the catch is, how do you do that if you're just going someplace you've never been before? All right. Horses are okay with that as long as there aren't trees around. And in Minecraft, there are a lot of trees. An Elytra are great because an Elytra, you can just fly over everything, find what you're looking for. It's great. I mean, you still have to get down on the ground if you're looking for resources or if you want to get to things underground. And there's a lot of things underground these days. But it'd be nice if there was something in between. But really where I think people tend to want something that is potentially not Elytra is going to be actually traveling around a base, like this person in the Create Mod Discord was talking about, is we have now an established server. I have a base, you have your base, maybe we've got some farms over here, maybe there's a community area or a gaming district or shopping district or something. How do we get there in a reasonable way? Is there something that allows us to travel fast enough that we don't necessarily need an elytra, which is definitely handy if you regularly have new people coming onto your server, or you just have people who aren't fans of elytra, right? What do you do? Yeah, I was watching Mandolin the other day on stream. She's a wonderful Twitch streamer, and she runs an SMP, which I played on for a very long time. She's a very awesome community, but one of the things she did in her SMP was basically add creative flight for everybody. You just run a command, and then you can fly around like you're in creative. And because she has that, she almost never uses an elytra. So here she is. When I was watching her, she was playing on the one shot hardcore SMP, right? It's a month-long SMP, and it's in hardcore. So if you die, you're out, right? It's just, oh no, I do not want elytra because I will face plant a wall and die, right? But what she was saying basically, and it's perfectly valid. I've certainly died often enough using an elytra because I didn't land fast enough, right? Or land fast enough. I landed too fast. I didn't land safely and splatter yard sale bits everywhere. It was messy. Okay, and there are definitely players like that who just don't want to deal with an elytra. So how do you get from place to place in your established infrastructure? Like, exploring is its own separate beast, but how do you get around with your established areas? And I think that's actually one of the more interesting problems, okay? Because when you look at human history, traveling through unexplored, untamed wilderness is slow. It always has been, right? Even if you're riding across the plains, it's still slow. There's no infrastructure at all. Travel became really fast, at least especially in the United States when they built the Transcontinental Railroad, or heck, even before that, people would arrive at the docks in New York City. They could take a train out through Chicago or some other city on the Mississippi. And from there, okay, now it's horse and wagon across the plains and across the mountains. And if you're lucky, you don't get caught in a snowstorm. Then after many, many days of months of walking, you can get to California. Okay. But once they put in the Transcontinental Railroad, that got really fast. So I think for that sort of travel, requiring a little bit of infrastructure to be built is okay. And that starts pointing at minecarts. Now, minecarts, I think as they exist, are not the answer. Okay. They can be faster. They're certainly faster than a horse. If you've got a thing that's just golden rails, yeah, you can go pretty quick. Is it fast enough to compete with with flying? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know that it actually is. And that's, I think, I think that's one of the answers that needs to be solved here. Okay. So let's start laying out some parameters here. Whatever the solution should be, it should be fast enough. Okay. And I think that's an important rule. Okay. It's not that it has to be faster than Elytra. Okay. If it is, okay, fine. But it doesn't have to be. It just has to be fast enough that, hey, if you decide to use whatever the transportation is, you don't feel like you're crawling. Okay. You don't feel like it would have been faster to walk, right? All of that stuff. And it shouldn't feel like you're still taking forever. Okay. So it needs to be fast enough. And we could pick a number, right? You could say it's 80% the speed of an Elytra in a straight line. Okay. And that's fine. Okay. pick something, but we should be able to go there, and it should be. It should allow people to travel in groups, and because if you and your friend are both going to their base, it would be nice if you could both go in the same mechanism. All right, so you can stay close to each other, and not wait around and, oh, I'm lost and where are you and what's going on, right? You could just go. Reliability is important here too. Okay, minecarts have an annoying problem because they don't connect in any way. So if they bump into each other at all, like if one's going a little bit faster than another for whatever reason, and they bump, well, now you lose momentum. Maybe you're going backwards, right? If you've ever launched a train of minecarts anywhere, they're not all going to get there at the same time, right? A year or so back, I had a single player world I was playing on, and I had set up a villager breeder on the surface in this village, and I had a bunch of villagers, and I had some that I trained up for various trades, because villager trades are awesome. Well, I was moving into a deep dark city, okay? And yeah, the whole point of that world, my Going Solo Season 3 world, was to renovate an ancient city. And so I was going to live down there. So I was going to take my villagers with me. And so I had a bunch that I trained. I had a bunch that had been bred and were just waiting to be used. So, okay, fine. So I built this big minecart track that went down to the city. Once I got all the villagers lined up on minecarts, it's like, okay, this should be easy, right? Just give them a little nudge, and they all go. Right? I'll grab a furnace minecart, just let that push. Yeah, some of them went flying. Some of them kind of bounced back and forth. Some of them it was a deep hill that I had in this cave going down because, hey, the deep dark is way down -30 or something. My village was up like -70 or something. It was on a hill. -70, -80. And yeah, some of the villagers, they got towards the bottom. They bounced. They were coming right back up the hill because just the way the collision mechanics on the minecart works sucks. Okay? So that, I think, would need to be solved. Okay? Whatever the transportation is, it needs to be reliable. Okay? So, what is the answer? Okay? Now, I'm currently playing Create Mod over at Music Free Gaming and having a lot of fun with it. And one of the things I'm building a lot of, well, a few anyway, are trains. Okay. Now, Create Mod, you can build a train. By default, they go about 28 meters per second. If you fuel them, it means if they're carrying something that you can put into a furnace, they can go 40 meters per second, which is not as fast as an Elytra, I don't think, but really fast otherwise. Like even at that 28, that slow speed, that's still fairly quick. Now, it does still require you to build out a lot of infrastructure. You have to lay rail and stuff. I don't think that's a bad thing. All right. Again, if you're building this for actual transportation around a world, not necessarily trailblazing, then yeah, it's fine. And if you want to, your trains can look really pretty. Okay. Now, my trains don't look pretty, but yours could. Okay. Mine are boxes, and part of that is because of the way I decided to set up my loading and unloading infrastructure, and that is dictating a few things, which is not fabulous. But regardless, they can look pretty. The problem is it requires something that is completely new and different from Minecraft. See, in Create Mod, when you build a train, you put what they call a bogie, and you can take one or two of those, and that becomes the basis of your car. And then you build out whatever it's going to look like, and then you use a super glue item to glue it all together so it's one entity. Okay? I don't think that would fit within what they have established for vanilla Minecraft, which is reasonable. Okay, I think it works great. You know, it's a good thing, but I think it's just going to be too far outside of what vanilla Minecraft does. Okay, so while I think that would be an amazing solution, let's take that off the table for a moment. Okay, and honestly, the prettiness would be nice. Okay, because frankly, minecarts, they don't look right. Okay, so what is the answer? Okay, let's start with the faster minecart test that Mojang was testing with. Or testing with. They have a an experiment that you can turn on in a world, and what it does is it allows you to, through a configuration change, set the maximum speed of minecarts to be blindingly fast if you choose. Okay. And I think that's a step in the right direction. Okay. Having minecarts be able to go faster and be fast enough that you can say, yes, I absolutely want to get from here to there before I can finish the sentence. Okay, cool. Now I think the default might be not warp speed. let's avoid ludicrous speed here. Let's dial it back. Let's just be, you know, like ridiculous speed or something. Okay. Can we find a happy medium here, right? But I think that is a good start. Okay. And there are some other things that we could do with this, but let me go down sort of my wish list here. Things that I think would help make minecarts a reasonable infrastructure travel thing, right? Sorry, my brain just turned off there for a moment in the middle of that sentence. But yeah, if we were to use minecarts as actual infrastructure here, I think there's some possibilities, but it needs help, okay? So one of the first things you would need, again, is something that can carry passengers, and passengers plural, okay? And get all of them to the same place at the same time, okay? And that's going to require you to be able to link minecarts in some way. And honestly, I think they have the tools to do it, at least on as far as the blocks go. They have minecarts and they have chains, right? If you could link them together, if like use a chain, click on them with chains, and now they're one thing, that would be great. All right, you can have multiple passengers. You could set up minecarts with chests, right? So think about this, for example. You have a mining desert, or maybe you've got an ice field where you're collecting powdered snow in cauldrons, or you've got ice farms out there, and you want to get a bunch of stuff and bring it back. Okay, and there's some other changes we'll get to in a minute, but hey, let's head out there with your lots of minecarts with chests. You can load them with shulker boxes. You can do whatever, and then hop in the train and head back to your base. Okay, that would be cool, right? You've got a lot of cargo. It's all coming with you. The infrastructure is actually going to be helpful here, because right now, none of the travel infrastructure is really that helpful for getting you from one place to another with stuff, or said with a friend. But cargo's an issue, right? Sure, you can get a donkey or a mule, and you can put a chest on it. Okay, that helps. That gives you a little bit of extra space. And certainly if you have shulker boxes that you could load all that stuff in, okay, that's fine. But they're slow. And llamas are even worse. Okay? If you have bred up llamas, and again, if you aren't taking weeks and weeks to do it, if you have llamas bred up so they have the full inventory, which I think is 15 blocks, or 15 slots, then you can take them, but you can't chain your llamas together, so there's always the possibility a llama's going to wander off, and they're slow, and it doesn't work for actual cargo, for getting stuff from place to place and moving a lot of it. Now I mentioned the change with the latest snapshot, which is that they are allowing things to random tick in loaded chunks, no matter what is loading those chunks. Okay. Currently, if you want crops to grow or anything like that, you have to be within like 190 blocks of 190, 128. So you have to be within a range of whatever the crops are. And if a player's not in that range, nothing grows. Okay. Which is not great if you want to have like a wheat farm that does things, right? Well, the change they introduced in the latest snapshot ties in with some other changes they've had where if you have an ender pearl, like an ender pearl stasis chamber, if you've thrown a pearl, it will load the chunk. Okay. But they've also included this in the spawn chunks area, okay, of a new world. Now, they made the change now that the spawn chunk is a single chunk and not 9, but you can change that through config if you wanted to. But everything in that chunk will random tick. Okay, so, hey, could you have minecarts that run between where you're at and one of these loaded chunks and load up? Okay, that would be great. And then once it's loaded, come back, right? We already have redstone. This is a solved problem of having minecarts that go to an area, you fill them with stuff, and they stay where they're at until they're loaded, and then boom, they go. Okay? That's a thing. Now, how do you do that with linked minecarts? Okay, now, so there's some questions here, okay? Do you treat it all as a single inventory, right? If I put hoppers into one of those minecarts, does it fill all of them? Do I have to put hoppers over each minecarts to load each thing? Okay, and that would be a perfectly valid thing, right? You just have to then pay attention to how do I know that they're all loaded, right? You might need a tweak or two to how trains move or minecarts move. And actually calling them a train of linked minecarts, how they move, is interesting, okay? And there will probably have to be some tweaked mechanics to that. Because with a single minecarts, it's just where that lead minecart is. How do the rest of them, how does that get handled when you have a train of 5 of them? All right? And that means you're going to need better control of the train. Okay. Better control if you're driving it, for one thing, right? So right now, if you're in a minecart, you have not no control. You can like lean in a minecart and have it move a little bit until you hit a powered rail or a hill or whatever, and then you're off. If you want a fully automated train, you don't have that, right? So how do you handle those controls? Okay, so that would be something to look at. The other thing is, how fast do you go, right? How do you control the speed? Now, we currently have a handful of ways of doing that in Minecraft, but they're all tricks, right? Powered rails will accelerate a minecart to a certain speed, and you can chain a few powered rails together, and they'll go until they hit a maximum speed. All right, that's great. And then they immediately start to slow down. Okay, that's fine. That's not necessarily wrong. That actually matches reality fairly well, right? But sometimes those are too fast, right? Because you may, especially if you've got a small area where you want them to go slowly for a minute, because maybe you're loading items into them or something. How do you handle that? Right? I don't know. And honestly, like I said, the current speed is not fast enough, I think, to fill that gap, especially if you're building a passenger train. So, right, how do you control the speed? And having something that might be a little bit more adjustable. And I'm not necessarily saying that it has to have an interface where you say, oh, let's dial this all the way up to whatever the max speed is, or dial it down to this will only take you to 50% speed or something. Okay. I don't mean something like that necessarily, but maybe a different set of rails, right? I've heard people talk about, oh, maybe you could use copper rails for something or whatever. Okay. Those are a possibility, right? You could say, gold rails will accelerate you, and maybe these rails, once you're on them, you don't slow down, right? That would be kind of cool, right? Or gold rails will get you this fast, and whatever the other rails are will go faster. Okay, right? Those types of things are a possibility, right? So there are some options there. I don't know what the right solution to this is. Okay, and maybe they're not necessary, right? But the reason I think about it is if you crank up the minecart speed so it's fast, and I mean mind-numbingly fast, right? Like you can do in the snapshot. You may want that to slow down. So if I'm running if I have a build where you can minecart into my city, maybe you're coming real fast in between, and then I want to dial it back so you're slowing down some, so you're going slower through my city, and then whoosh, ludicrous speed once you get out of it again. Okay? Hey, I can quote unquote force you to spend a little bit more time looking at my city, and then whoosh, right? But the other thing you would want to be able to do is control how your train handles selection of track, right? Because, yeah, you can have track that turns and goes straight, right? We currently can control that with levers and stuff. But if you're in a minecart, it's really hard to make a selection. So, for example, if you're warp speed to my city, and you actually want to come to my train station, for example, where things slow down, and then you can stop and you can get out and explore the city, or we can get together and do stuff or whatever. Or you want the expressway and bypass the city. How can you handle that from within a minecart? All right. And I think the option of throw a snowball or target block is not a good option. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't think that's going to be the way to go. The other aspect of this that I think would be good to solve, but again, I'm not entirely sure the best way of doing it, is if you have a cargo train in particular, because passenger trains aren't going to have this problem, and you want them to go from your base to your farm, and it has to go through unloaded chunks, what do you do? Right? And there isn't a good solution for this at the moment. So what if minecarts, maybe a special minecart, could travel through unloaded chunks? Okay? Or would load chunks as it goes? Okay? What if you had an ender cart? Okay, right. If you craft a minecart with an ender pearl, and if it's connected with a train, for example, it has to be, because maybe this cart by itself can't carry cargo or anything, but it's like a furnace minecart, something like that. Is you can put in an ender pearl, and this will now load chunks as it goes. Okay. Did I just break the game with a super ridiculously easy chunk loader? Yeah, probably. Okay. But something along those lines that would allow a minecart train to travel from one base to another to pick up cargo and come back. That would be really cool. All right. It's one of the things I like about trains in Create Mod. Again, I would love to, if all of Create Mod just became vanilla. Okay, that's just me. But something along those lines isn't necessarily a bad idea, right? Now there are ways of dealing with that actually right now, and they're clunky. Because if you run something through a nether portal, it loads the chunks for a few seconds. So you could take your train, send it through a nether portal, and before the chunks stopped loading, go through another ender portal. So now you're back in the overworld for 10 seconds, and then you're into another portal in the nether, and you just hop through the nether, and it's just hopping, and that will get you there and you're loading the chunks as you're going through this chain of portals. All right. The overworld sections are going to suck. Because in the Nether, everything's close together, right? I mean, it's obviously still block for block, but you're crossing 8 blocks in the overworld, which is fine. But when you have to build the other portal on the other ends in the overworld, how far can you get in 10 seconds? That becomes really close together in the Nethers. And portals linking and all that stuff is messy, okay? Doable, but messy. So I think maybe some better solution could be created there. I don't know what. Okay, there are, as I suggested, an enchanted minecart or an ender cart or something might be the way to go with that. I don't know, but something along those lines. Okay, so these are some of the things I think would probably solve some of the travel problems in Minecraft between established places where you actually have to build out infrastructure to be there, okay? This doesn't solve the fact that Elytra lets you get places fairly quickly, all right? And I don't think that's a problem that needs to be solved. I think that's a good thing. But for those who don't want to fly, or if you want some established infrastructure, oh, I will just hop this train and go to my friend's base, right? We've got better options, I think. I think we could have better options. So anyway, that's what I've been thinking about. If you have ideas, let me know. Drop them in the comments, either here or Spotify or whatever, and let's talk about this, because I'm curious what you think. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.